My father died without ever telling me he loved me. For 60 years I carried that like a stone in my chest. I'm 81 years old now. My name is Robert, and I'm only just beginning to understand what I spent a lifetime resenting. I grew up in a house where affection wasn't spoken. My father was a machinist. He worked third shift at a factory in Detroit, came home smelling like oil and metal shavings, and slept while the rest of us lived our lives around him. He was a quiet man, not cold exactly, but distant in a way that made me feel like I was always reaching for something just out of grasp. I don't remember him ever hugging me. I don't remember him at my baseball games, though my mother swears he came to a few. What I remember most is the silence between us, thick and uncomfortable, like we were two strangers stuck in the same house. When I was 17, I told him I got accepted to college. It was a big deal. I was the first person in our family to go. I waited for something, some flicker of pride or warmth in his face. He looked at me across the kitchen table, nodded once and said, "That's good. You'll need a trade to fall back on." Then he went back to his coffee. I felt so small in that moment, so unseen. I wanted him to be proud. I wanted him to say it mattered. He didn't. I left for school that fall and barely looked back. I built a life for myself. I became a civil engineer, got married, had 3 kids of my own. I told myself I'd be different. I'd be the kind of father who showed up, who said the words, who made sure his children never had to wonder if they mattered. And I was. I told my kids I loved them all the time. I went to every recital, every game, every parent-teacher conference. I was present in all the ways my father never was. And still, somewhere deep down, I felt cheated. I felt like I'd been handed a blueprint for fatherhood with half the pages missing. My father got sick when I was 43. Lung cancer. He'd smoked unfiltered cigarettes his whole life, and it finally caught up to him. I went back to Detroit to help my mother take care of him. By then he could barely speak. His voice was a rasp, his body a shadow of what it had been. I sat by his bed one afternoon while my mother ran errands, and I thought about asking him. I thought about saying, "Did you ever love me? Did I ever make you proud?" But I couldn't. The words felt too big, too raw. So I just sat there, listening to him breathe, waiting for something that never came. He died 3 days later. For years after that, I was angry at him for leaving without giving me what I needed. Angry at myself for not having the courage to ask. I talked about it in therapy. I talked about it with my wife. She told me once that maybe my father loved me the only way he knew how, and I remember feeling so frustrated by that. It felt like an excuse. It felt like I was being asked to forgive something unforgivable. Then 2 years ago, my oldest son got sick. Not cancer, but close enough. A degenerative condition that came on fast and hit hard. One day he was fine, coaching his daughter's soccer team, and 6 months later he couldn't walk without help. I watched my son, this man I raised, deteriorate in front of me, and I did what I could. I drove him to appointments. I helped him with insurance paperwork. I sat with him on the days when the pain was too much and he didn't want to be alone. I didn't talk much during those visits. I didn't know what to say. What do you say to your child when they're suffering and there's nothing you can do to fix it? One afternoon I was helping him into bed, and he looked up at me and said, "Thanks, Dad, for being here." And I nodded. I didn't say I love you. I didn't say I'd do anything for you. I just nodded and made sure he was comfortable, and left the room because I didn't trust myself not to break down in front of him. I got in my car and I sat there in his driveway for 20 minutes, and that's when it hit me. I thought about my father. I thought about all those years he worked third shift so I could have clothes that fit and food on the table. I thought about the time I got pneumonia when I was 8, and he stayed up all night in a chair beside my bed, even though he had to work the next evening. I thought about the way he fixed my bike when the chain broke, never saying much, just kneeling on the driveway in the heat, grease on his hands, making sure it worked before I rode off. I thought about the envelope of cash I found in my glove compartment the day I left for college, with a note in his handwriting that said, "In case you need it." My father never told me he loved me, but he woke up every single day and went to a job he hated so I wouldn't have to. He put food in my mouth and a roof over my head. He stayed up when I was sick. He fixed the things I broke. He gave me money he didn't have. And when I told him I was going to college, he didn't jump for joy because he was terrified I wouldn't make it, that I'd end up back in that factory just like him, and he couldn't bear to give me false hope. He loved me the only way he knew how, and I spent 60 years resenting him for not loving me the way I wanted. I don't cry much anymore, but I cried that day in my son's driveway. I cried for my father, who carried the weight of our family in silence. I cried for all the years I wasted being angry at a man who gave me everything he had. And I cried because I finally understood that love isn't always loud. It isn't always wrapped in the words we want to hear. Sometimes it's quiet, sometimes it's sacrifice. Sometimes it's a man too tired to speak, making sure you have what you need even when it costs him everything. I wish I could tell him I understand now. I wish I could go back to that hospital room and say, "I see you. I see what you did for me. And it was enough. You were enough." But I can't. All I can do is carry him with me differently now. Not as the father who failed me, but as the father who loved me in the only language he had. If you're carrying anger toward someone who's gone, I want you to ask yourself something. Are you angry because they didn't love you, or because they didn't love you the way you needed them to? Because those are two very different things, and one of them, if you let it, can finally set you free.